It was a rainy evening in the city, one of those nights when the streets glistened under neon lights, and tired souls sought comfort in warm cafes. Inside, the Golden Spoon, a small family restaurant tucked between office towers, the air smelled of baked bread and roasted coffee. It was a slow night for Mia, the young waitress who worked double shifts to pay her bills and keep her dream alive, a dream of opening her own bakery someday. She moved between tables with a quiet smile, though behind that smile was exhaustion. Her shoes were soaked, her hands a little shaky, and her eyes heavy from lack of sleep. Still, she treated every customer with warmth. "Can I get you anything else?" she would ask with genuine kindness that made even the grumpiest patrons soften. That evening, as she cleared a table near the window, the door opened with a soft jingle. A man in an expensive gray suit walked in, tall, confident, the kind of man who carried authority in his posture. He was followed by his assistant and quietly took a seat at the far corner. He didn't speak much, just nodded when Mia greeted him. She had no idea that this man, Mr. Adrian Cole, was one of the city's most influential CEOs, the kind of man who could buy an entire restaurant without blinking. A few minutes later, the door opened again. This time, a young mother entered, her coat dripping from the rain, carrying a small girl of about 6. The girl's bright eyes darted around the restaurant, curious but silent. Mia noticed immediately that the child didn't speak a word, not even when her mother tried to tell her what to eat. The little girl only nodded, then used her small hands to sign something. Mia's eyes softened. She knew that language, sign language, it had been her lifeline for years, once belonging to her little brother, Noah, who had been born deaf. He had passed away 3 years ago after a heart condition took him too soon. But those years of learning to communicate with him never left her. She walked over to the table with a gentle smile. "Hi there," she said softly to the mother, then crouched down to face the little girl. With her hands, she signed, "Hello. What's your name?" The child's eyes widened in surprise, her lips parting in delight. For a second, she froze, then quickly signed back, "Emma." Mia's heart melted. The mother gasped softly. "You know sign language?" she asked. "Yes," Mia smiled, "my little brother was deaf. I learned for him." Emma's face lit up with pure joy. She signed rapidly, telling Mia about her favorite color, her love for pancakes, and how people often didn't understand her. Mia listened patiently, responding with gentle signs, her hands moving gracefully, her eyes always filled with care. The restaurant seemed to fade around them. It was just the two of them communicating in silence, a language of love and understanding. At the far corner, Adrian Cole watched the scene unfold. He had been buried in emails, half listening to his assistant talk about a merger, but now his attention was fully captured by this simple, beautiful exchange. He saw how the little girl's entire face glowed with happiness, and how the waitress's eyes carried a warmth that couldn't be faked. Something stirred inside him. He leaned forward slightly, studying her. There was something so rare about her, that kindness that expected nothing in return. When Mia brought the food, Emma clasped her small hands together and signed, "Thank you." Mia smiled back and signed, "You're welcome, sweetheart." That moment, Adrian's voice broke the quiet. "Excuse me," he said, standing up and approaching their table. His presence was commanding yet calm. "Where did you learn that?" Mia blinked, slightly startled. "Oh, sign language," she asked. He nodded. "My brother," she said softly. "He was deaf. I learned for him when we were kids." Adrian's expression softened. Something about her words hit deep. "That's remarkable," he said after a pause. "Not many people would take the time." Mia shrugged slightly. "Love makes you learn things you never thought you would." For a long moment, he just looked at her, a look that said more than words. Then he smiled faintly and returned to his table. After that, the night went on as usual. The rain kept falling, the restaurant emptied slowly, and Mia stayed behind to clean up. But she couldn't stop thinking about the little girl's smile. For the first time in weeks, she felt lighter. When she finally turned around to close the last window, she saw that the man in the suit, Adrian, was still there. He was standing by the counter, waiting. "Oh, I'm sorry," she said quickly, wiping her hands. "Are you still waiting for something?" He smiled. "Just the bill." She printed it out and handed it over, but when he glanced at it, he chuckled softly. You undercharged me. Mia frowned. No, sir, that's the correct total. He shook his head, took out his card, and said, then let me add something for the service, and for the kindness I witnessed tonight. When she returned the receipt, she noticed the tip line and froze. He had written $1,000. Her eyes widened. Sir, this must be a mistake. It's not, he interrupted gently. Consider it a thank you. You gave that little girl something most people couldn't, connection. Tears filled Mia's eyes. That's too much. I can't accept. You can, he said softly. And you should, because people like you deserve more than they're given. She didn't know what to say. All she could do was nod and whisper, thank you. The next day, Mia returned to work, still processing what had happened. But when she arrived, her manager handed her a letter. This came for you early this morning, he said. It was sealed in an elegant white envelope with a gold crest. She opened it and gasped when she saw the words. Dear Miss Mia, you may not remember me beyond last night's dinner, but I remembered you. I am Adrian Cole, CEO of Cole Enterprises. I was deeply moved by your compassion and by how you communicate from the heart. I'd like to offer you a position at my company, not as a waitress, but as the head of our new Hearts That Hear Foundation, helping children with hearing loss receive access to education and care. If you're interested, come to this address tomorrow at 10 a.m. With gratitude, Adrian Cole. Her hands trembled. She reread it 3 times. A foundation, a job that actually meant something, that connected her with the memory of her brother and children like Emma. The next morning, she stood outside the towering glass building downtown. She almost turned around twice, thinking it was too good to be true. But something inside her whispered, go on. When she stepped into the top floor office, Adrian greeted her with a warm smile. I'm glad you came. I almost didn't, she admitted. He smiled faintly. I was hoping you would. He led her through the office, blueprints on the walls, plans for inclusive schools and hospitals. I started this initiative after losing my sister, he said quietly. She was deaf, too. I always wanted to create something for her, but never knew where to start. Then I saw you last night, and I realized, you already know how to reach hearts that can't hear. Mia's eyes glistened with emotion. I'd be honored, she whispered. Months passed. The Hearts That Hear Foundation became one of the most impactful projects in the city. Children who had once lived in silence began learning, laughing, and signing together. Mia worked day and night, training teachers, visiting schools, and organizing events. Every time she saw a child smile like Emma had that night, she thought of Noah, her brother, and felt as if he was still with her, smiling too. Adrian often visited, watching quietly as Mia interacted with the children. She brought life into every room she entered, her hands dancing gracefully in the air. And slowly, something more than admiration began to grow between them. One evening, after a fundraising gala, Adrian found her standing on the balcony, looking at the city lights. You've changed so many lives, he said softly. She smiled. So have you. He shook his head. You gave this project its heart. I only gave it a name. Mia turned to him, her eyes glimmering. You believed in me when I didn't even believe in myself. Adrian took a step closer. I saw who you were, someone who listens without words. They stood there in silence, the city's hum beneath them, until he reached out his hand. Slowly, gently, she placed hers in his. From that night, everything changed. Years later, on the anniversary of the foundation, the hall was filled with hundreds of children, signing, laughing, and celebrating. At the center stood Mia and Adrian, now married, their faces glowing with joy. Emma, the little girl from that rainy night, ran up to the stage with a handmade card. She signed with a big grin, "Thank you for hearing us." Mia bent down, tears in her eyes, and signed back, "You're the reason I started listening again." The audience erupted in applause, but for Mia, the only sound that mattered was the soft flutter of hands in the air, the language of love, gratitude, and hope. And that night, as she looked at Adrian, she realized something profound. Sometimes, the smallest gestures, a child's "thank you," a stranger's question, a moment of kindness, can open doors that change lives forever. Because love doesn't always need words to be heard. Sometimes, it only needs a heart that listens.